Good evening. My name is Buddy Teisch, and I'm a member of the Board of Directors of the 92nd Street Y. The star of tonight's show is a New York Times best-selling author and the creator of the Borowitz Report, which has millions of readers around the world. Earlier today, Mitt Romney pinned him down to the ground and tried to cut off his hair. Ladies and gentlemen, Andy Borowitz.
Ladies and gentlemen, let's hear it for Mr. Buddy Teisch, okay? That's good. He killed it. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for coming out this evening. I want to welcome you to this special live edition of the Borowitz Report. Tonight's show, a look at the election with a diverse panel of Jews. I don't know about you, but I often find myself asking, what are the Jews thinking? I want to know. Because here in New York, we are starved for the Jewish perspective. Especially here at the Y. And so, tonight, in a rare New York appearance, live Jews on stage. Let's hear it. What a treat. Yes, tonight the Jews are going to overcome their usual bashfulness and speak out. And you know what? The politicians, they're going to be listening because there's an old saying in politics, as the 92nd Street Y goes, so goes America. Yes, tonight's panel looks like America, if you live in Scarsdale. So, very exciting. Now, before I begin, just a little program note. It came to my attention just before the show that Joy Behar, who is scheduled to be on the show, is not Jewish. She is Italian. It's a common mistake. She's in show business. She's chatty. But it is my mistake. I did not vet her thoroughly. It's on me. I promised you one thing, and I intend to deliver on it. So you have my apology. But let me just say, on Joy's behalf, she has logged thousands of hours with Barbara Walters. So I feel, by sheer osmosis, she is qualified to participate tonight. Does Joy have your support? I want to know. Yes. Very excited. Very excited. Well, now, on to the election. The Republican race for president, as you know, is now over. And given that, I think it would be cheap of me to make jokes about it tonight. But just to review. This Republican race came dangerously close to qualifying as a prank. I mean, if you watched any of their debates, and I watched them all pretty religiously, it was like watching a sitcom with no main characters and just wacky neighbors. It was like you turned on an episode of Laverne and Shirley, and for some reason, the girls weren't there. It was just a half an hour of Lenny and Squiggy. And, you know, let's be fair for a second. There's always been this whole sitcom wacky neighbor aspect to all of these presidential debates in both parties. Like, in 2008, on the Democratic side, it was like a sitcom. Your main characters were Hillary and Obama, right? And they were like right center stage. And every now and then you'd cut to a wacky neighbor like Dennis Kucinich, okay? And he'd be like, I think we should get rid of the Defense Department and have the Department of Flowers. But then you'd cut back. He was like briefly tolerated, but you'd cut back to the main characters, and then the sitcom would continue. And it's a tricky thing because sometimes you have a candidate who you think they're a main character, and they turn out to be a wacky neighbor. Like you're John Edwards there. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Now that's a tragic story. Like, that's a guy who ran for president when he should have just joined the Secret Service. I mean, that's whoa, tragic. But with this Republican debate this year, you would look at these debates and the camera kept on searching for a main character and you couldn't find one. It was just wacky neighbor. Wacky neighbor was like, oh, there's Mr. and Mrs. Roper, and there's Schneider with his tool belt, and there's Ron Paul, and they were just wacky neighbors. Now I know some of you are probably like saying, okay, well, what about Mitt Romney? Isn't he a main character? No. No. Mitt Romney is, you know what? He's Thurston Howell III from Gilligan's Island. He's just the millionaire. That's all he's got going for him, I mean, Mitt Romney is really like, he's like the poster boy for the American political system, where you give a former high school bully unlimited money to attack people. That's what he is. And he needs it. He needs it because, I'll tell you, he spent $76 million on this primary to defeat a serial adulterer and a mental patient in a sweater vest. Not a main character, folks. And you look at the rest of the field he was up against, Michelle Bachmann, who doesn't believe in evolution because it's really let her down. And was there like a random pizza guy running, or did I dream that? No. That actually happened. Herman Cain, that's right. And you know what? I got to tell you, I got nothing against pizza people getting involved in politics. But you know what? It says something kind of damning about this Republican race that it couldn't even attract somebody from a first-tier pizza chain. Like, where was Domino's or Papa John's? Like, no interest whatsoever. But the pizza thing didn't bother me, except I'm putting myself in Herman Cain's shoes and say like, okay, I'm a pizza guy. I'm running for president. Wouldn't I work like overtime to make sure I have as much credibility as possible every time I open my mouth? Herman went a different way. I mean, let's say you're applying for a job at Radio Shack. Wouldn't you take the time to maybe learn what a radio is? Wouldn't you? Maybe check on Wikipedia and see what a radio is, or okay, so when you are in a presidential debate, it's like you're applying for a job. You're applying for the job of President of the United States of America. Now, I know what some people say. They're saying, well, the United States isn't what it used to be. It's in decline. But you know what? The United States of America is still one of the top 50 countries. Right? USA. And I think that should really count for something. You should respect that. And Herman Cain seemed barely familiar with our three branches of government. Or as Rick Perry calls them, our two branches of government. Now there's another guy, Rick Perry, I mean, he basically had a drunk blackout on national television. And he was like, no biggie, happens all the time. No, oops. Very chill, very relaxed, and I was looking at that. I was looking at that and how relaxed Rick Perry was, and I was thinking, it must be wonderful to have such low standards for yourself. I mean, and don't get me wrong, I have pretty low standards, but nothing like Rick Perry. I mean, he was so relaxed, and it made me think, who was it who lowered the bar for how little knowledge a national candidate could get away with having? Who is the trailblazer who did that? And then I remembered it was the governor of Alaska. It was I could point to the historic Sarah Palin. She is like the Marie Curie of ignorance. She discovered this thing. Because it was a moment in 2008, I'm sure a lot of you remember it. It was her interview with Katie Couric, right? And Katie Couric asked her, could you name one Supreme Court decision that you disagree with? And she had nothing. I mean, she just had nothing. She said, I'll get back to you. That was it. She had nothing. And I'm like, dude, yes, that one Supreme Court decision, you got to pull something out your ass, you know? Ali versus Frazier. Say, you know. And here's really the most damning thing that I can say about this Republican race, which is that Sarah Palin didn't even run this year because I think she thought it was beneath her dignity. So as I said, I'm not going to talk about the Republicans tonight because I think it would be cheap and easy to do that. So I'm not, but let me just say one last thing while we're on the topic. This is how bad the candidates this year have been. That people have actually said to me, in all seriousness, they've said, Andy, have you ever considered running for office? And I say to them, first of all, thank you, it's very flattering, but you don't understand my role. I'm part of the problem. I could never come up with the smart solutions that politicians come up with to solve our problems. I mean, they come up with such ingenious solutions, and we've got such big problems right now, folks. We've got this struggling economy and a towering debt. And what is the solution that politicians have come up with to fix that? Transvaginal ultrasounds. Of course. It's so obvious. Transvaginal ultrasounds solve everything. You with me on that? They solve everything, like every problem, you name it. War on terror. We're out there looking for terrorists. We should be checking everywhere. You know what I'm talking about. I'm not saying the women in the audience tonight. I'm sure you're all clean as a whistle, but I'm just saying we should be checking everywhere. As a matter of fact, I'm not running for president, but if I were, this would be my slogan. No vagina left behind. Are you with me? Thank you very much. Are you ready for the show? Okay. Just for those fans of history, I should say that that is the first time that the phrase "no vagina left behind" has been said on the stage of the 92nd Street Y. Oh, no, actually, I take that back. A couple weeks ago, I think Shimon Peres also said that. My bad. Maybe it was Netanyahu. One of those guys said it at some point. But I just felt it had to be said. And it's always good to end on the word vagina, because everybody loves that. We have quite a show tonight, quite a panel. Now that I've dragged everything down to the gutter, I've really got things ready for them. We have an amazing panel of experts to talk about the election, and we're also going to, at the end, take your questions. And my only requirement for your questions, I guess, would be that they be in question form. Sometimes we have questions that are really thinly veiled displays of the questioner's erudition, and we like to try to avoid those. But I want to we're going to bring out our whole panel in a minute, but first I want to bring out somebody who's been on many of these shows before with me, and he's one of my favorite writers and just one of my favorite people in general. He's written for years for The New Yorker, Time magazine. He's written many best-selling books. But I think the thing that's most unusual about him is that he is America's topical poetry laureate, really, is the only way to put it. He writes poetry for The Nation that are very up to the minute and really sort of encapsulate where we are as a country in 2012. So with no further ado, I would like to introduce Mr. Calvin Trillin. Bud?
Thank you.
But I know you usually like to begin your bits with some kind of a vagina remark, so I'm sorry. I'm sorry if I stepped on that in any way. I was greedy.
You
of me.
didn't actually end with vagina. You ended, the last word was behind.
Well, also a crowd pleaser, though.
It's part of your Tushy series.
It is. It is. Now, Bud, and I should probably point out that it's not disrespectful that I'm calling you Bud. It's not like, hey, Bud.
Right.
That's actually your. No one calls you Calvin. People
No.
call you Bud. What was the? It's weird to have a name that nobody calls you by. You know what? How did that?
It's inconvenient.
It's inconvenient because you have to constantly correct people. Like I find that during the day, 9 or 10 times a day, people call me douchebag, and I have to say, no, that's Mr. Borowitz.
Right.
And it's terrible when it's your kids who do that. But how did it get to be Bud? I'm just
Well,
curious.
my parents were willing to call me Calvin. I mean, to name me Calvin, but not call me Calvin. Mm-hmm. I think my father thought incorrectly that Calvin would be a good name to have at Yale. Mm-hmm. And he hadn't gone to college, and he thought Yale was a good place to go. It's an odd name. I haven't, in a way, the opposite problem that Joy Behar has, in that I was once called by a Rabbi Pupko in Chicago, apparently well-known rabbinical family, the Pupkos, and asked me to speak at something they're having at a Jewish center, and knowing from childhood that rabbis get deep discounts, I was reluctant to do that. And he said, we're having a series called The American Jewish Experience in the Eyes of Gentile American Writers. I said, well, Rabbi, I don't qualify. And he said, oh, Calvin Trillin. And I said, I'm from Kansas City, Rabbi. And in Kansas City, Calvin Trillin is a very common Jewish name. We later called, he demanded we have a title for the speech, and the title we decided on was or I decided on, was Midwestern Jews, making chopped liver with Miracle Whip. And after the speech, a woman came up to me and said, "That was a very clever metaphor, that title." And I said, "Alas, madam, that was no metaphor. My mother's recipe." So it's an odd name, and it's not good. It's not good to name your kid something you're not willing to call
Of course,
them. But douchebag would have been a silly name.
that would have been bad. You know, it's fun. Rabbi Pupko, I mean, Pupko is also not, that's a changed name. Because I think they were
Right.
originally Shitowitz, and it became,
Right.
it became Pupko.
One of those Ellis Island changes.
One of those regrettable,
Right.
one of those
The guy
regrettable
couldn't remember, right.
Pupko.
Why don't we just call it Pupko? Right?
Anyway, you know, the comedy of the evening was getting a little more elevated when you were talking, and then I immediately reined it in, brought it back down.
Right.
But now let's talk a little bit about, before we bring our other panelists out, let's just talk a little bit about your role as you're a deadline poet.
I'm one of two deadline poets. We have an organization, the other one's in Canada, International Deadline Poets Organization, IDPO.
IDPO. And he writes for, what does he write for the Globe and
Well,
Mail?
he was writing these deadline poems for the Globe and Mail, and he no longer does it. So I sometimes say his membership in IDPO, I would say it's hanging by a thread, except that would be a metaphor, and we discourage metaphors
Right.
in IDPO. It's actually the second one of these two people groups I've been a member of. For about 15 years, I did a piece every 3 weeks for the New Yorker around the country, and Jules Lowe, a reporter for the AP, was doing a similar series, and we started an organization called the International Association of American Correspondents, the American Association of American Correspondents Covering America. GLINGPAC was our acronym. And our headquarters, of course, was O'Hare Airport, where we spent most of our time.
As it should be,
And
yeah.
there were only two of us, and we only had one rule: you can't quote de Tocqueville. And that's how we kept the membership down.
That's a good rule to live by.
Yeah.
So you're writing poetry for The Nation, and when do you have to file every week?
I usually send it in on Monday morning, so on Sunday nights, I set the shower to iambic pentameter, and it usually just sort of works out.
Well, you know, could you perhaps? I think we could coax Bud to share a few of these with us, maybe. Yeah. Got it. What have you got? I know
I
that's
brought
what
some
they say
stuff.
to John Milton all the time.
Yes.
What have you got?
What have you got? And he says, this was written, oddly enough, a week before Maurice Sendak died, and it was called "Newt Departs from the Island of Pollywonks, the saddest leave-taking since Max left the Wild Things. Don't go, all the Pollywonks started to croon. What other Republican dared to harpoon the Mitster for being a heartless tycoon? Who's left to start planning a town on the moon as if he had stepped from the pages of Dune? Who never did hesitate once to impugn the press, his best foil when it seemed opportune? Oh, why, Newt, oh, why must you leave us so soon? But Newt, though quite portly as well as jejune, just floated away like a hot air balloon. That's the first time jejune has been said on the 92nd Real.
That's right.
Here's one called "I Thought I Would Never See a Paul Who Loved the Height of Trees." This is from Mitt Romney's quote when he was in Michigan for the primary. "I love this state. It seems right here. The trees are the right height." Away from here I find no trees that please, no trees at such a perfect height as these. For me, I cannot ever be at ease with trees that grow no higher than one's knees, or too tall trees that splinter in a freeze. Wisconsin sure has bragging rights on cheese, and California's rich in Cantonese, and Colorado's where to take your skis. Connecticut, of course, has Lyme disease. But at none of these am I prepared to sneeze. But here we have the perfect height of trees. I know that I will never see a sight as lovely as a tree whose height is right. Just stop me whenever you're ready, because I brought 65 poems here.
Did you hear about this is maybe related to poetry, I don't know, but did you hear about George Bush's endorsement of Mitt Romney today?
No.
He said, I'm for Romney.
That was it?
That was it. But
That
it
is
did
like
use-
poetry. It's
It
kind of
is. Well, that's what I was wondering. It's like
simple eloquence.
it's almost enough for the first line of a haiku.
Right.
I'm
for
Romney.
Romney.
I was just wondering if maybe we could build on that.
We could.
I just thought that was fascinating, just that he's now become so sort of zen in his simplicity. Which is, I guess, I think you achieve a certain amount of peace after you've almost destroyed the entire world.
Right.
It's very,
Clean your mind.
it really, you've done all you set out to do.
Here's one called Ron Paul Still Standing. Mitt's opposite number is still in the race. Paul has his supporters. He has his own base. He has his own style, which is folksy, not canned. Religion, he's got one, his prophets Ayn Rand. By Rand's wacko theories, he's fervently gripped. So he won't do flip-flops. He long ago flipped.
Do you know, this another sort of news, all of your stuff is so topical, but he announced yesterday that he has decided that he's not going to become the nominee of the Republican Party.
No.
Which is, and then also the Knicks announced they're not going to be the NBA
The
champion.
NBA, yeah.
It's
Same
sort of
day. Right.
a joint announcement. But I think that's good. He's I don't know what stage of acceptance he's at now, but he's sort of,
I he's
saw
passed
that.
through denial.
He has passed through denial, and he's
right.
now, so he's now actually, I guess, sort of with the rest of everybody on the planet,
Right.
in knowing that he won't be president. That's good.
This is, I just wrote I'm doing another long narrative. Let's not be afraid of the word epic here. A long narrative epic poem, a book-length poem on the election, as I did in 2008, and I just wrote the epigraph for it, which I could read, which is called "Let the Barking and Biting Begin." Mitt Romney put Seamus on top of the car. He liked it up there, and we weren't going far. Obama, in boyhood, while in Indonesia, once swallowed some dog meat without anesthesia. Though dog lovers wouldn't be either man's base, a dog fight seemed what was in store for their race. Obama's got eloquence, Moot's got the boodle. So who'll be the Rottweiler, who'll be the poodle?
Well, do you have one more that you'd like to share with us, or?
Yeah, the Perry thing reminded me, I didn't bring a Perry poem, that was terrible, but I do remember writing a Perry poem which everything rhymed with Perry, including beneath the hair what's there is airy. This is called Lamentation of the Late Night Comics. While Jimmy Fallon tears his hair, Bill Maher laments it's just not fair. Dave Letterman begins to pout. They've heard that Herman Cain is out. In common with his late night peers, Jon Stewart comes quite close to tears. He'd much prefer a case of gout to hearing Herman Cain is out. The man is threatening our jobs, says Leno as he softly sobs. Colbert is staggering about. He's heard that Herman Cain is out. They pray together on their knees. Could we have Donald Trump back, please?
Bud Trillin. Very good. All right, well, now I would like to bring out the rest of our panel. We always like to have one person on the panel who has actual information, just for a little spice. It's interesting to have somebody who actually knows something that really happened. And tonight, I'm thrilled that a good friend of mine is here. He's going to be a familiar face to many at the 92Y and everywhere. You've seen him on MSNBC. He's been a columnist many years for Newsweek and now with Bloomberg View. Let's hear from Mr. Jonathan Alter. Jonathan? And finally, in a nod to diversity, I've been so eager to have this woman on our show for years, and she's always had some conflict or another because she's a busy person. She's had a million TV shows. She's still on a very prominent one, and she's a great woman, great friend, and wonderful stand-up comic. Let's hear from Ms. Joy Behar. Joy?
I'm up.
Just kidding. You don't have to get up. I'm kidding.
Now, Joy, I'm so glad you can make. You've done a lot of things at the Y. The Italian thing hasn't been a barrier in any way. So and you feel very much.
Well, you're just one of many who doesn't believe that I'm not Jewish.
I know. Well, you can understand
I do this whole bit in my act about it.
You do?
Because no one
The fact that you just said, I do
this
this whole bit in my act is the most Jewish thing anyone has ever said.
Because it's really, no one ever believes me. A few years ago, I got a call, Happy Hanukkah. I said, Ma, I'm not Jewish.
Andy, I'm the odd man out here tonight, not Joy, because
Why?
because I'm outnumbered. I've got three funny people
But
on
you
the
have
panel. I'm not
information.
funny.
But
okay?
you have-
I want everybody to know that.
No, but you have information, and we need someone to mock. And so it's very,
And you're it.
it's like it's very important to have somebody who actually knows something. Now, Joy,
I beg your
We
pardon.
do have three Midwestern Jews on the panel, though, because I'm Midwestern, too, from Chicago, and my grandparents' country club didn't allow any non-Jews at all, but they served shrimp, and they had a big Christmas tree and an Easter bunny. No
that's
joke.
that's what it's like to be. Well, I'm from Cleveland, Ohio, and we actually, it's not known as a very Jewish place, but we did it when I was a huge Indians fan, and at one point we had an outfielder for the Indians named John Lowenstein. I don't know if anyone remembers him. And in Cleveland, huge Lowenstein fans. Those people were just applauding the last name Lowenstein. That was not even, they don't even know. But in Cleveland Municipal Stadium, John Lowenstein would be announced and get up to bat. And I'm not making this up. The organist would start playing If I Were a Rich Man.
That's terrible.
And I'm serious. And then after about the 10th time they'd done this, John Lowenstein complained. And he said, look, I'm not even Jewish, I'm German. And I was like, dude, you believe what you want to believe, but I've heard your theme song, I'm pretty sure.
He's probably in one of those books like The Jew in American Sports.
Exactly.
Mordecai Richler once reviewed, I think, the Encyclopedia of Jews in American Sports, and he comes to the thing that said something like, Jaime Katz, lifetime batting, 5 at-bats, 1 hit. And he said, don't they realize the Goyim are reading this?
Now, just to get to the serious matter here, backstage, Joy, you asked, since you've never done the show before, you were wondering what the format would be. And just to break it down so you'll be comfortable with it, the concept is it's 4 people sitting around having a conversation. Now, I don't know if this is something that you'll be comfortable with, but
Well, you're a little bit too polite so far.
Well,
Nobody's
this-
interrupting me. Nobody's saying, don't finish that sentence.
well, this will help. It just, if you feel yourself sort of like a fish out of water at any point, if you just picture that Bud is Barbara Walters, and that
looks like her.
Jonathan is Whoopi Goldberg, and I'll be Elizabeth Hasselbeck.
Okay, fine.
Okay, so that'll just help you. But you actually mentioned backstage that you had Obama. You were with Obama on The View yesterday.
Today.
Today.
Well,
I
yeah.
was with him on Twitter today.
Were you?
Yeah, I was very excited. I don't mean to one-up you. How did that go down today? What did?
Well, he was there yesterday. He taped yesterday.
Right.
And we aired it today. So
Right.
it was yesterday.
And what did you give him the whole hour?
We did.
Uh-huh.
Wasn't that nice of us?
It was nice of you, because
Yeah.
I know there's
We
that
give
new
it-
Avengers movie out, so I
Well,
don't know.
we'd give it to Bristol Palin, so why not him?
Bristol Palin, have you had Bristol
Yes.
Palin? She is doing a new reality show, despite her mother's total objection to reality. She is doing, that is, well, you got to do the joke about your mother, so I stuck that in.
Well,
what did,
her mother, Sarah Palin, refuses to come on The View because of me.
really?
Yes.
'Cause
She's the
she's-
one packing heat. I don't know what she's scared of me.
What have you said about Sarah Palin that first of all, that she hasn't heard any, I mean, she's
And
heard.
also, you know who else won't come on? Chris Christie. We promised him a buffet and everything. But he's not. He won't come on because of me. This is a truth.
So
And
you're-
John McCain, wait a minute. John McCain won't come on because of me. What is it about me? I'm just a comedian. Does Carrot Top run into this problem? John McCain was on the show, and we raked him over the coals a little a couple of years ago.
Yeah, I remember that.
And he didn't like that. So he won't come back on The View. And I thought, this is a guy who went back to Vietnam after they tortured him and they left him out in the sun. The man got skin cancer, and he went back to Vietnam, and he said, I forgive you, but he won't come on The View.
Because you know why? Because in Vietnam, Joy Behar was not
Exactly.
there, and that was the. So what? But okay, now you've opened up a whole new vein of inquiry for me. What is it about you that keeps on alienating all these people?
You tell me.
No, but what have you? Do you remember any? You must have said something. I mean, did you say? I mean, what could you have said about Sarah Palin that?
I'm trying to remember the various things I've said about her.
I did a poem about Sarah Palin to the tune of that Barbara Streisand classic, On a Clear Day I See Vladivostok. And we're still friends.
No, well, I'm pretty sure Sarah Palin does not read The Nation, so she may not have.
Oh, I
She may
never
not
thought of
have
that.
come
I
across
never
that
thought of
poem.
why she was still not mad at me.
Although she says she reads all of them, right? She does read all of them.
Everything.
That means, what does that mean? Every magazine? I mean, like peer review medical journals, minimally invasive nursing. I read that, Okay, so, all right, so Obama came on the show yesterday, and like I don't think anyone in New York noticed that he was in town yesterday, but he came on the show, and then is there like much vetting in advance about what you can ask him, what you can't ask him, or
No,
no,
nothing,
he just
no.
that's
As a
cool.
no.
So it's like easier to interview him than it would be like Reese Witherspoon.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Yes,
that's
there are
interesting.
many restrictions on a lot of celebrities.
Exactly, because they all have publicists, but he doesn't have
Right.
anybody out there ahead of him except maybe Biden on gay marriage. But,
That's right.
but so he sits down. Is he just very chill? Is he very? He's
Well,
just
we
very
were all
relaxed.
excited.
Yeah.
Barbara gets excited when any powerful president comes on. If the president of Burundi was there, she'd get excited. She just, that's her thing.
So what does she get?
He won't come on.
No, I know. He
No,
won't-
because of you.
Because of me.
He did come on once.
He came on, but that was
was
before. The day I was sick, he came on.
Yeah.
So what we're
He was charming. He was delightful. He's very handsome. You could fall for him. He's a very attractive man. He's hot. He's very hot.
Was he?
Not in the same way Clinton was. Clinton, you know, has a different hotness.
What is the
Yeah,
difference?
we're familiar. I think we're familiar with Clinton's hotness. That rings a bell somehow.
We know a little bit more about that than we want
Than
to
we
know.
care to.
Yeah, that's
So, so I think Obama's gonna be back many times because it sounds like you were very nice to Obama.
Of course I was.
Yeah.
I'm a huge fan of
Yeah,
his. You
okay,
think
so
I want
what-
to vote for these other idiots on the other side? They're mentally retarded.
Well,
This is an example about why people won't come back. Imagine
way,
that, just because
just-
you said mentally
Not
retarded.
that I
They're
did want to
just
insult
you
the
know, for
mentally
some of you
No.
may find the term mentally retarded offensive. You should probably leave now because
I don't mean to insult mentally retarded by comparing them to
no.
Republicans.
You just don't want them.
It's not really fair.
No, you just
Yeah.
don't necessarily want them to have nuclear weapons.
Yeah,
is what
that's
you're
the
saying.
only thing.
Okay.
I don't want either one,
So-
the Republicans or them.
But this
So
is
I
kind of
think-
a breakthrough for liberals that we're breaking through this PC thing. Because 5 years ago, you know, that would be a problem for a liberal to say mentally retarded, right?
When you're referring to
Aren't
Republicans?
we getting?
I
Yeah.
don't think so.
No, I think so. I think even then. I think even because
Really?
liberals were weenies,
Yeah, the
Right, so
political
our-
correctness destroyed stand-up comedy, you know.
Right. Well,
but it also kept the gloves on for liberals.
What
They
was-
couldn't hit below
No,
the
I think
belt,
you
they
can
couldn't
say
do all
more
kinds
now
of
than
things.
you used to be able to
Yeah,
say, certainly about
definitely.
race and things like that.
Yeah. Are you thinking of, are you thinking of a poem
Say
right
it.
now?
we're waiting.
Say it, bud.
I don't have a poem on mentally retarded, but only because it's a bad rhyme. Retarded, snarted. It doesn't,
Okay, but you have the president of the United States. I mean, I'm just curious. How did Elizabeth Hasselbeck? She's very conservative, very right wing. How did she deal with?
She
him?
was very polite,
Was
you know,
she?
yeah.
But
was
she
very-
hates everything he stands for because he is a gay Muslim born in another country.
Socialist, don't forget. No, she's not. She's pro-gay marriage.
She is?
Elizabeth, yeah.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
Okay.
You know, Michelle Bachmann is pro-gay marriage. She's been in one for many years.
Boom.
Don't you feel sort of sorry for Marcus Bachmann? I mean, he was minding his own business, and now he's a punchline. But he is a punchline.
He had a
He's
great.
he's a punchline in Switzerland too. I mean,
That's right.
turns out she's
And they
Swiss.
don't.
Who knew?
On the other hand, they don't have many punchlines in Switzerland. They can use whatever they have.
I mean, Marcus Bachmann is used to being in the spotlight. I mean, all those years in Cirque du Soleil, he is more than up to the task. I would not worry about it. This is
worry about
proving to be the least elevated conversation.
That's because I'm here.
Because
Now you know
Joy,
why none of them will
you know,
come on.
when you're not here, I mean, last time sitting in your chair was we had the Reverend Desmond Tutu, and it was a very different.
Oh, Desmond Tutu was a riot.
It was a very different vibe. Just let me say, I did not know, for example, that he was Italian, which came up.
Tutu.
but-
His name ends in a vowel.
It does. Now, it does. It was Tanucci originally. Let me ask you though. You have the president. I'm fascinated by how it goes down on The View. You have the president of the United States there for now, and that's a unique opportunity for journalism. So of course you did a trivia contest about the Kardashians.
Yes, we did. We have to.
And he got.
It's
the
required.
And was there also a cooking segment with him?
No, no cooking, no
But
cooking.
did he was better with some trivia questions than others. What did he get right?
He got right, who was the Kardashian who was married for 72 hours? He said Kim, like that. He knew
That's
it.
so great that he actually can distinguish between the Kardashians. That shows a
Well,
certain
I
level of
think
knowledge.
he knew that because he had done a joke on the Correspondents'
Yeah,
Dinner
I
about
see.
He
Kim
did it,
Kardashian.
and she was there, and
Yeah.
His schedule is now basically 80% stand-up comedy, 20%, and then 20%
No,
killing
singing.
bin Laden, and then that's it.
No,
So
he's
he
got
also has to do
singing.
the
He's got
vocal.
some singing.
And he sings,
He
he
sings,
does
right.
some Al Green.
But he knows that he's funny because I said
He's
to him,
unbelievably
I said to
funny.
him backstage, you were funnier than Kimmel, and he said, I know.
But he is, I mean, he nails us if he's got these great writers who write it for him, but then his delivery is better than anybody's.
his
Flawless.
timing's good.
No, John
Flawless.
McCain was good.
John McCain was
No, he really was. and the
He
Al
killed in
Smith dinner,
Hanoi.
and the Al Smith dinner, I think John McCain was
Yeah,
better.
John McCain was better at that.
Do you know?
John McCain is funny.
He is funny.
do you know who-
He just
well-
doesn't like joy.
He hates me.
While we're on
But it
this
doesn't
topic,
mean he's not funny.
do you know who I think of all these guys who I still think he wasn't as gifted in terms of delivery, but just the concept of him as performance art was so great, was Bob Dole. Because what I loved about Bob Dole, he was ragged as a comedian. He wasn't consistently funny because sometimes he was just mean. But
Right.
what I loved about Bob Dole was I related to him because I felt like if I were running for president, I would approach it the same way he did, which is that he would always sacrifice votes for a good joke. Like,
Yeah.
it was like, I'm gonna lose 1 million votes, but I don't give a shit because I'm gonna kill with this.
Right.
And my favorite was when he was at, I can't remember, it's a really famous joke, but I love this joke. He was at some state funeral, and as is always the case, they would wheel out all the living ex-presidents. And at this thing, there was Jimmy Carter, Gerald Ford, and Richard Nixon. And he said, there they were, all three of them. Hear no evil, see no evil, and evil.
That's good. He said that.
Yeah, it's just
Well, I
like
think-
so fucking mean.
Yeah.
And to a member of his own party.
I love
That's
that
what I love.
about
It's
him.
just like,
But-
how much political suicide can I commit? But
Well,
I got
when,
I-
when
I-
he, when he
I-
committed suicide was the day he decided to do a commercial on Viagra.
right.
It's like, how much did they have to pay the Vice President of the United States to say he had erectile dysfunction?
right.
How
Well,
much?
I
Millions?
would like to
He was
defend Bob Dole.
retired.
Bob Dole he's from Kansas. He had what we would call a mean tongue, and he was funny. And also, I have to say, his name rhymed with so many things.
Right.
Perfect for you.
Right. It was great
Old
for you.
King Cole, sauteed escarole. I mean, couldn't beat
They
it.
were also, Dole and McCain are genuinely funny with reporters. That's why they're so popular with us. But it's part because they have a sense of irony after what they've been through in their lives. I
Right.
mean, I think Clinton, for all his other virtues, really doesn't have much of a sense
No.
of irony.
No.
He's not really very funny.
No.
So it helps to have been beaten around a little by life.
Well, Jonathan, since you were playing the role tonight of designated informed person, and it's really good because actually, when you're on cable news, they don't let you talk. I mean, you talk very briefly, but then they
And
cut
they
away,
ask-
and then it's like, gentlemen, we have to leave it there, and I never get to find out. I mean, I always feel like if you watch cable news to try to get informed, it's like going to Olive Garden because you want to live in Italy. It's like you know what I'm saying. Because it's always like if
I
they
hear
had
you.
like if on MSNBC they had like let's say, Jesus decided to come back, they would have like on CNN they would have Jesus and Satan in a split screen for 2 minutes arguing about free will or something, and then it'd be like, gentlemen, we have to leave it there. Here's minding your money.
I'd like to see
Here
that.
401k tips.
It amazed me when I started on MSNBC the first week it was on the air in 1996. And I thought, okay, well, this is cable. I'd been doing some network stuff. They've got all the time in the world. There's nobody watching. Why can't they have
More time.
longer segments?
Yeah.
Right.
But they just aped the pacing of network television, and then everybody else did
Well,
the
the
same
other
thing.
choice is to be on PBS and die a slow death.
Right. PBS is good to be on if you're a walrus
Ah.
on an ice floe. But no, I mean, but you're great on TV. And the only thing, I don't know if do you ever talk to like the executives at MSNBC?
I do sometimes.
Could you just pass this one thing on? Just a tip.
Depends what it is.
All right. Well, you can quote me on this. Their slogan, "Lean Forward," is also the official slogan of the rectal exam. And I mean, when I heard that, I was like, what was their second choice, Like, you might feel some pressure, is that? So anyway, I'm just saying if it comes up, like you're with Phil Griffin in the hallway, say, Phil, lean forward, that's really cool, but feels
But
like
that's-
someone's
there's
shoving
a
their
reason.
fist up there in my ass. And,
There's a reason.
I'm
There's a reason. Have you ever
uncomfortable.
watched MSNBC on the weekends? All
on
prison docs.
Prison docs, that's right.
Lean forward. Don't drop
Well,
the soap.
I used to watch To Catch a Predator religiously. And then they finally caught that Chris Hansen guy, and the show was over. But anyway, so you're talking a lot about the race now. Where do you think things stand? I mean, in my view, like if America's given a choice, now this is obviously very biased, but Obama I think has had a pretty good presidency. He hasn't been perfect, but like a year ago I was saying, the guy who kills bin Laden, that's like we were kind of looking for him for a while, and that was like kind of a big deal. And I feel like some of the other things have been good. So he's like the guy who killed bin Laden versus the guy who held down a gay boy and cut off his hair. It seems like it'd be a landslide, but of course I'm biased. So where do you think the race is?
Well, remember,
And why do you think that's true?
That's a two-part
well-
question.
Yes.
First of all, it's interesting if you think about bin Laden. That was almost exactly a year ago.
Right.
that he
We
was
were all here.
So Obama, surges in the polls after doing this. It's very dramatic. And then within a month or 6 weeks, he was in the toilet.
What did he do? What did he do then?
Because the economy started to crater, both in the
Well,
summer of...
because bin Laden was a job creator. Obvious.
That's clear.
We have all those people searching everybody. I mean, that's what Romney says. If
Well,
he's
yeah.
elected, he's going to bring bin Laden back to life. He's going to undo that. He created a lot of jobs.
And then what happened?
Well,
So the
and
economy
then-
got bad.
And that happened in the summer of 2010 too, and there's some indications that it's going to happen again this year. There's
So
some-
he's going to have to kill bin Laden again.
But Jonathan, why does anybody think that going back to the same policies that got us here are going to work the second time?
Well, the definition of insanity
Yeah.
is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. So I guess you could say that a certain portion
Half
of the
the
American
country
public
is
might be
crazy.
insane.
Yeah.
Yeah, because they're not really looking at, this is something, politicians can never attack the voters, but we can, even if we get flamed and online. But, they have busy lives. They're not making sense of it right now. Whether they do in the debates, when Obama turns to Romney and says, we tried it your way with the Bush tax cuts over the last 10 years, and we had the worst job growth since the 1930s.
Right.
It was better in the 70s than it was in the 2000s, right? So we tried it your way. It failed utterly. You folks believe in giving more money to rich people. We are human capitalists. We believe in investing in people, human capital. You would think that would be persuasive.
Right.
And maybe when everybody's paying attention, which they do at the end of these campaigns and in the debates, that Obama will be able to make a
unless
sale.
gas prices go up and unemployment goes up. And then
Well,
they
if
won't
that
listen.
happens, then Obama looks ineffectual. And then they're not really making, see, the whole race comes down to whether it's a choice or a referendum. If it's a choice, then Obama wins. If it's a referendum on him, do we fire the boss or not, then he could lose.
Yeah.
And so, at a certain point, if people get pissed off enough about his not doing better on the economy, they might just say, fire him. And right now, they're saying in the polls, they think that in the first year of the next administration, that Romney will do a better job on the economy because they're fed up and they're willing to try something different, and they're not paying attention to the fact that Obama inherited this, and that we would be, if we'd been where we were when he came into office, losing 800,000 jobs a month, that by the end of 2009, if it weren't for the much maligned stimulus and the auto bailouts and the other really controversial things he did, we would have been in another Great Depression without the slightest exaggeration. If we had continued to lose close to 1 million jobs for the rest of that year, we would have been where our grandparents were. And he prevented that from happening, but that's an abstraction,
But you know what?
It's
In
really
fairness, Mitt Romney saved the Olympics. He did. And that shows that he could be president. Because you know what it takes to save the Olympics? You order additional tents.
That was the
things like
highlight
that.
of his career. When he was governor of Massachusetts, they were 47th out of 50th in job creation, which, if they have any skill at all, the Obama people will ram down Romney's throat.
I have a leftover poem.
Sorry.
Did you feel that there's sort of an absence of rhyming going on here? Because
Jonathan, I mean, it was very intelligent, but I didn't hear anything rhyme in what he said. I think I've said this one before because it's left over from 2008 about Mitt Romney. Yes, Mitt's so slick of speech and slick of garb, he reminds us all of Ken and Barbie. So quick to shed his moderate regalia, he may, like Ken, be lacking genitalia.
Thank you. That's good. And I liked that for obvious reasons.
Yes, I thought that would appeal to you.
But now, Joy, have you had Mitt Romney on the show?
No, he
He
hasn't.
won't go on?
He doesn't
Well,
talk
we
to
don't
any
know.
of us.
Oh, yes, he was on.
He was
I
on?
forgot.
Were you not?
He was on. He was,
It was,
so
but
boring.
it was during
he
the
won't
day,
come
so
back.
he didn't show up. What did he?
Dulceville.
He was very boring.
Extremely.
Yeah, yeah.
He's not doing anything. I just read a piece of he's not doing anything now. I mean, he goes on Fox occasionally, but otherwise.
But you know, I'm curious. You know, the country doesn't care about him being a Mormon. I found out recently that Mormons believe that they're all going to get, when they die, they all get their own planet.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's true. Well, and he could buy one, I think.
What?
He's already got like the Caymans, so he's started. You know, he's started. But no, they get their own.
There won't be any illegal immigrants to clean it. I'll tell
Right.
you
But
that.
I don't. You
To
know.
bring the
I don't.
But how about when he starts? If it, they do this baptism of
Posthumous baptism.
Yeah, what about-
baptism of those who perished in the Holocaust. And one of the reasons he doesn't want to answer questions is that years ago, he did not deny that he had taken part in some posthumous baptisms, because he's a very active member. Unlike John Huntsman, he's a very active member in the church. So he doesn't want to be asked the question, especially by Elie Wiesel, whether there were some Holocaust victims who were among those that he posthumously
But he
baptized.
definitely, they had Ann Romney's father, who was vehemently anti-religious, posthumously baptized as a Mormon after he died.
Right.
But of course, because they do that also for marriages. Mormons believe that if you lived before Joseph Smith received the tablets from the angel Moroni, that it's not your fault, and that you're kind of wandering around in sort of limbo without any reason. That's why they're such good genealogists, because they go back and find their relatives.
I know all about that. I saw the Book of Mormon.
Oh, that actually, I have to say, the Book of Mormon, the research and stuff on the Book of Mormon was absolutely right.
Accurate.
But I realized when he said about gay marriage, I said, well, wait a minute, if dead people can get married,
Then they're all for it.
why not gay people? I mean, it just seems so
yeah.
much less of a stretch to me.
Well, maybe we should introduce the idea of dead gay people getting married.
I don't think they would
And work
approve
our
of
way
that.
up to live gay
I don't
people.
think they would approve of that.
But I just want to say, it's easy to take shots at someone's religion, but especially in an organization like the 92nd Street Y, which is predominantly Mormon, I just don't want to. I don't want to offend. I don't want to
Okay,
offend.
no, I'm
people.
just curious
So,
about it.
it is. No, it's an interesting.
The evangelicals don't seem to be upset about.
Well, they
the
are.
fact that
Well,
he's
I
a
mean,
Mormon.
I think the thing is, I think a lot of evangelicals, and I can't speak as an evangelical, but I've read that a lot of evangelicals do not consider Mormons Christians. They've said
true.
that they think it's a cult like Scientology or something like that.
No, they say Scientology plus 125 years.
Yeah, that's what they say. And so, I mean, I think that this fall election is going to pose a tremendous dilemma for bigots, because you've got the gay Muslim guy running against the Mormon guy.
Gay Muslim foreigner.
But
Gay
you also
Muslim
have,
guy born elsewhere.
as my editor points out, you have, for the first time in American history, two candidates, both of whom have a polygamist for a grandfather.
Right.
So in Africa and
That's right.
in Mexico.
That's right.
But, people
You know,
here-
it's funny that
How far we've come.
It's funny
on
that
the-
Romney is the Mormon, and yet Gingrich is the one with all the wives.
That's right.
And also Romney got all the Catholic voters. Santorum is Catholic, and he got all of the,
That's right.
the evangelical voters. And
I did a little piece about Gingrich in the New Yorker, that scene, the imagined scene that said, Callista Gingrich, aware that her husband has cheated on and then left two seriously ill women, tries to make light of a bad cough.
Is that a poem?
No,
It was a narrative.
It was a narrative.
Yeah, haiku.
It was a narrative. It was very, yeah, it was a good, it had what I would say called dramatic tension, that situation that you created. Yeah, it was sort of sad when he dropped out of the race and you saw him power down Callista to sleep
Right.
mode. It was sort of it was a sad moment to kind of, but I mean, I sort of alluded to this in my bit earlier, but it's sort of a serious point. I think it does show certain vulnerabilities on the part of Mitt Romney as a candidate. The fact that people like Rick Santorum were giving him a run for his money. Rick Santorum seemed like he was running for president because the job of Spanish Inquisitor was not available. I mean, this guy was just a Looney Tune. It's like saying, John F. Kennedy's speech made me want to throw up. It's just like, he did not seem like somebody, I mean, he seemed like he was off his meds.
Right.
And the fact that somebody who maybe should be monitored on a full-time basis is almost beating you in the primary, I think that shows a certain resistance. Or do you think that would be trumped by higher gas prices? Like that, the fact that he's not somebody
What
that
about the
anybody
fact,
likes.
when his baby died, I guess it was, this is so sad.
This is going to be funny.
This is not going to be funny.
this-
No, it's not funny. But it's weird. It's
Good to have
weird.
a real comedian
Oh,
on
I know what
this.
I know what it's going to
No,
be.
it's not funny.
Okay.
This is weird that people don't know this maybe.
About Rick Santorum.
Yeah.
When the baby died,
I know the
he
story.
took the baby home and had dinner or something with the dead baby and his kids.
Right.
He's demented.
I know.
That is
And he's
really-
not coming
Well-
back to The View.
But with or without that baby, I know.
I did a little thing of him taking over homeschooling from his wife, because they homeschool their kids, where he says, the founders had no intention of having separation of church and state, and little Kevin Santorum raises his hand and said, my friend Timmy says that was a Jefferson statement, a phrase, separation of church and state. And there's a silence, and then Santorum says, Timmy is inhabited by Satan. and Kevin says, Timmy Burnside? The Timmy Burnside who lives down the street?
But the level of hypocrisy was sort of off the charts, because while they were homeschooling their kids, they were taking money from the state of Pennsylvania. This is one of the reasons he lost his Senate seat by 18 points. And he was conflicted up the wazoo as a hypocrite.
The business about snobbery in college education, his father had a PhD. He had 2 advanced degrees.
Yeah, he did, but-
But his father had a PhD on the GI Bill. Talk about your socialism.
But I love that. That fascinates me. Just the whole notion that again, ignorance. To go back to Sarah Palin, that ignorance becomes something that we should cherish. That's an American value. Like we're saying, college. I mean, something is really fucked up right now, because it used to be like after World War II, everybody was on the GI Bill because everyone was supposed to get a college education.
Yeah.
That's supposed to be a good
Right.
thing. And now I really feel that if you are educated, or say you have gone to law school, or
Yeah.
Right.
that is considered a negative.
But
Well, I think
there's
a lot
there's
of people
history.
like it if you're educated and you're still dumb, like George Bush was.
Right. You hide it well.
Yeah.
This is, they were going, one more time to the well, to the old playbook. It started with Nixon, George Wallace.
The elites.
Pointy-headed elites.
Right.
Nixon, even though his cabinet was full of Harvard men, ran against Harvard. Bush won, ran against Dukakis and Harvard, but it really became a joke.
Well, remember
when Mitt
Spiro-
Romney,
what about
with two
Spiro?
Harvard degrees and a Stanford degree, tried to say that Obama had spent too much time in the Harvard faculty lounge.
But also,
and,
Mitt Romney cannot possibly play the elite card. I mean, are they even going to try that? I mean,
Well, that's
did
what
you
I'm saying,
see that
they
thing
did
where he
try
went
it.
down to like the Daytona 500?
Yeah.
And he says, "I love racing. I'm a big fan of Nasdaq," and
No, he said.
whatever.
No, he said.
I'm
I've
friends
got
with
some
the
good
owners."
friends with NASCAR owners.
Yeah.
Well, actually,
He's a
Gingrich, in
liar.
fairness to the Mister, Gingrich accused him of being able to speak French. No, he did. He really
He
did.
did speak. Well,
Yeah.
wasn't he a missionary in France?
Yeah, but I heard him speak French, which it did. He must have not
Why did the
got too
French
many
need a
souls.
missionary?
'Cause
Why
they-
would the
because-
French need a missionary?
They send them all.
Why would they need a
Yeah,
missionary?
why do they need a missionary in France?
Well, they
Because
misbehave all
the
the
Mormons
time.
go. The Mormons
go
go
door to
everywhere.
door.
They-
Didn't you see that
there,
Dominic
there is a Mormon who's
Strauss-Kahn
assigned
thing?
to the 92nd Street Y. They're trying to everywhere they can go. They can go. Well, but we're going to take some questions from the audience, and they've been advised to keep them in question form, just like on Jeopardy. But I'd like to first sort of, this is I know a silly exercise, but I'd like to, starting with Bud and then ending with Jonathan, I'd like to ask your best guess with 5.5 months ago till the election, how you think it's going to play out, what do you think the campaign will be like, and who you think will win? Bud, what do you think? And please, could you make your answer rhyme? You don't have to do that, but you can just tell me.
Romney is a terrible rhyme.
He is.
Obama would have been a better rhyme if I hadn't used up all the rhymes with Osama. Like Yokohama and slap your mama.
But what about, are you just gonna resort to Mitt? Because that'll be the easy.
I do use Mitt a lot,
Yeah.
and Newt, and the other people I really don't like for meter purposes is the Tea Party. They have some other problems too, but because they're not iambic. I once
Farty. Goes with party.
Yeah. Party.
Party.
Joy's not even a professional poet, and she.
How I come up
Nailed
with these
it.
things, I
You
don't know.
just thought of that just
Yeah,
like
just
that.
like that.
By the way, Bud, totally beginner's luck. What you said.
She really made herself laugh.
Okay.
Your turn now on the
No,
predictions.
but you didn't. No.
You didn't give the prediction.
You didn't tell us how it
Oh,
it
I
was.
thought I could get away with that.
This is kind of like putting us
This
on
is
the spot, don't you
McLaughlin,
think,
yeah.
Andy?
I
It
have-
is.
It's a little pushy, I think.
It is.
I
a
have
little
I
pushy.
have no
I'm
idea
sorry.
because
It's the
as
Italian in me.
Jonathan, the only one with real information here, will tell you that there are so many kind of elements that could happen under nobody's control.
Right.
I mean, Middle East or the gas prices or Europe or something. There's really no way to predict it. However, I have to admit that when I saw on television the White House Correspondents' Dinner, and I saw Obama speak, and he flashed that smile, I thought, I think he's probably going to win.
Okay, that's as good a good a guess as anybody.
Because you have on the other side a man who, it was said, I don't know, maybe Jonathan knows this, I don't know if it's true or not, that Bill Clinton once said about Al Gore, who I once referred to in a poem as a man-like object.
That's Romney, too. Romney.
Romney,
yeah,
too.
very much.
But
Very much lifelike.
that he's like that.
He's lifelike.
And
Yeah.
he has no ability to connect with other human beings. I have a piece that's too long to read that that where that wonderful story in the Times where the guy who was covering it said, you know, he's so uncomfortable in a crowd that he asked people their age and how they're related to people and whether
he
they're
congratulates
French,
them.
Canadian, and
Right.
congratulates them. But supposedly, Bill Clinton once said of Al Gore as a campaigner, he dances the dance, but he doesn't hear the music. And I think that's true of Romney.
That was
And-
true of Helen Keller also.
We're in real un-PC territory now.
Who never did The View for that reason.
That bitch. That bitch Helen Keller never showed up.
And she thought the whole name The View was kind of mocking anyway.
It was
What
hostile.
am I saying?
It was hostile.
Okay, so
I would now like to either turn this over to Joy or go home, one or the other. One or the other.
I just like to be politically incorrect because
Well,
it drives him nuts.
I just want, before we get to Joy, so you're saying
That- that's
Obama's going to probably win because he has that great smile, and I think that's a good reason. It is, but I mean, people have been elected for less than that. God knows. You know, about Mitt Romney. You know, when I see Mitt Romney, I don't think he would be a good president, but I think he would be a good president in a Jean-Claude Van Damme movie.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, where it's like, you're really focusing on Jean-Claude Van Damme, like stopping a terrorist from blowing up the Washington Monument or something. But then in the background, they just show the president on TV saying, and in the future, America, and that would be Mitt Romney. I think he'd be good at that, and I hope he loses, and I also hope Jean-Claude Van Damme makes that movie and uses him. So Joy, what do you think?
I don't know. I
You don't
mean,
know?
I'm worried because the women, last week he was 16 points ahead of Romney with the female vote. You know this. And now today I've heard on Al Sharpton, I watch that every night, that he's only 3 points ahead. So I'm
Really?
I'm worried about,
Because
I'm worried
he-
about the women not
Because
coming
he,
up to.
but what happened in the last week? He approved.
Went on The View.
He went.
Well, that-
And they were saying they were hoping for Sandra
67
Bullock, and instead they had to suffer through.
67% of people polled said that they think he's going for gay marriage now for political reasons, and that they probably believe he went on The View today to shore up the female vote, which is probably true, don't you think?
Yeah.
Well, at least he's making really good use of his time. He's going on TV more. So
gay
you're
thing
so
is
you're
not
worried.
true.
Obviously, you're an
I'm
Obama fan.
concerned.
You're concerned.
I'm an
So you
Obama
think it's kind of a jump ball, like it's too close to call.
I think it would be a disaster if Romney wins, a disaster.
Okay. And can I tell you something else, Joy? I want to say this. I think it takes tremendous courage to say that in front of an audience like this.
Aren't we out there?
Because-
You don't think there are plenty of Republicans in this audience? Please.
There are a lot of Republicans.
Clap if you're a
Do you want to
Republican.
ask?
Oh wow.
There you go.
All right.
Do you want to ask for hands?
Please leave. No. No, that's great. That's good. Because we obviously we tend towards one side of the coin. So I think it's great that Republicans that 4 Republicans came. Okay, so you're nervous, Jonathan. What do you think? And then I have a question for you. But
I'm kind of nervous too. I think it's about 50-50. I agree that his likability might take him over the top at the end. There's only been one presidential election in the last 50 years where the less likable candidate won.
Nixon?
Nixon
Yeah.
in 68 and 72. But there were kind of extenuating circumstances, and Hubert Humphrey, by that point, hadn't really become very likable, so he didn't have much on. And that was also an extremely close election. So usually it is a popularity contest, and the more likable guy and the taller guy usually wins.
Obama's very tall.
So he's
He
got
is.
that.
He's very tall. Yeah.
And I think that the other reason is, despite my calling half the American public insane, I actually think voters have a lot of common sense. And when they finally set aside their busy lives and focus, which doesn't happen until after Labor Day, then they do kind of absorb the argument in a larger sense. And I think the Democrats have the better argument about not going back to some of the clowns that got us into this mess. Of course, some of the clowns worked for Clinton, but that's a different story. But generally speaking, it was these Republican policies that got us into this mess. The harder thing will be scaring the public about Romney, which they should be scared about, because if you look at the Ryan plan, which will become law, they will rewrite the American social contract.
Right.
They will do it under reconciliation, just 51 votes. They will ram it all through. They will have basically a right-wing takeover of all branches of government. And we will be living in a different country in 2013, 2014, 2015, basically in a pre-New Deal country. Because if you look deeply, as unfortunately I'm paid to do, into what's in the Ryan plan, just to give you one example, Medicaid, $810 billion in Medicaid cuts over the next 10 years. That means the poor basically will not be entitled to any medical care, and they will go to emergency rooms when they get sick and be treated, but it'll basically
not
be
gonna work.
triage.
That's not gonna work.
Triage. It won't work.
That's not gonna
but they will do it. And they're serious about this. The radicals, Obama is the conservative candidate who wants to conserve what has been achieved in the 20th century.
Mm-hmm.
They want to upend the achievements of the 20th century. And that's not, usually I'm not like this, but it's not an exaggeration. This is the highest stakes election of my lifetime, more than 50 years.
I can't believe that
by
rational
far.
Republicans would let that happen. Where are they? Where are the rational
Well, they're
Republicans?
upset. So Chuck Hagel today, who was a very conservative Republican senator from Nebraska, he said that they've taken leave of their senses. This is not the party that he came up in. It's not the party of Reagan, that Reagan wouldn't be acceptable
Right.
in this party. And he went further than that and said it was like the worst since McCarthy had Joe McCarthy had a lot of influence in the early 50s. So reasonable Republicans are really scared. And what they say is, well, Romney, he doesn't believe in any of this. Romney's basic approach, as Mike Kinsley said, is his supporters believe he's lying.
Right.
Right? He doesn't mean any of this.
Is he? What do you think?
No, he's trapped. So even if Romney doesn't believe in anything except closing the deal, that's what these private equity guys are like, right? Anything to close the deal. So he doesn't actually believe in anything. But even if he were a closet moderate, which he might be, and I don't think he's a wingnut on social issues, it doesn't matter. He's trapped. As Grover Norquist said, all we need from the next president is somebody who can sign their name to the legislation that will be rammed through the
Great.
Congress.
So good thing Bachman didn't get it.
That's great. She could put her
They're-
ex.
So they're going to get the Senate. If Romney wins, they get the Senate. Then they have the House, the Senate, the presidency, and in the first 100 days, they pass the Ryan plan, which also will cut basic research, medical and scientific research, National Cancer Institute. They won't admit any of this, but to make their numbers, they have to slash what they call non-defense discretionary spending, which is everything except entitlements, defense, and interest on the national debt, by about 50% to make their numbers. So all the other things that the government does will have to be slashed by that. Or if they want to keep it at 100%, like air traffic control, things that we need at 100%, they'll have to slash other things by 75% to make up for the stuff they want to keep. It's truly radical. It's designed by an
Why do they
Ayn
hate-
Rand
Yeah.
libertarian
Yeah.
named Paul Ryan. And
Why do they hate the country so much that they want to
they
destroy
don't.
it?
This is their ideology. They love the country in their own terms. They just believe. I mean, if you look at Ayn Rand, and they believe that
I never liked her, and she'll
that
never
it's
come
the
on the View. I'm telling you
producers.
right now.
It's
A bitch.
that it's the people who produce the wealth who deserve
Job
everything, and
creators.
everybody else is a leech.
Yeah.
Right.
That's
Well,
their view.
first of all, let me say two things.
Charming.
One is,
Yeah.
that is longer than you've spoken on MSNBC all year.
Sorry, I'm sorry.
But I think we should read more.
Great.
So we're going to have to leave it there.
But Andy,
I-
do you think Jonathan scared the 3 Republicans in the audience?
No. I don't think so. But I want to give you my prediction. And I
They're
want to have a
fearless
couple,
or they
I want to
wouldn't
have a
be
couple of. I want to take a couple of questions because we want to hear from our audience. I was also very nervous about this election being very close because it felt like a lot of Democrats weren't that as energized about Obama as they were in 2008, but it also felt like a lot of Republicans weren't that sold on Romney, so it seemed like a close election. And then last week, something changed because this whole thing about Romney holding down the gay kid and cutting off his hair came out. And that, I think, really helps him with his base. So I'm a little more worried now because of that. I think that was
The bully vote is pretty
the
big.
bully
Yeah.
vote is huge. It's huge. So we've heard the predictions. Let's maybe raise the house lights a little bit so we can see our, and we'll just raise hands in the corner there. Yes, just shout it out and I'll repeat your question.
Since you mentioned the bully vote, I come from all the way across the water in New Jersey. What do you think about Chris Christie and his thug-like future?
Okay, the question, which I didn't find loaded at all, was from somebody in New Jersey, said, how do you feel about Chris Christie and his thug-like future? How do we feel about Chris Christie
my
and his
governor.
thug-like future?
I live across the river. You need a visa, by the way, to go there. I strongly oppose him on things like the tunnel to New York. I mean, I hate this idea that Republicans suddenly, the party of Lincoln, when Lincoln helped found the Republican Party, it was 4 years after the founding, they invested in education, land-grant colleges, railroads, infrastructure, canals. They believed in investing in the future of the country. But so this Christie decision on the tunnel is really repugnant to me. His tone offends people. It doesn't offend me as much as some other people because I kind of there's something I find kind of entertaining about his tone. I don't think it'll wear well with the people of New Jersey. On some of the pension issues, don't boo me, I've been booed here before, he's not entirely wrong because these pensions are unsustainable for state employees, and there have to be some tough choices. But Cuomo and the folks in Rhode Island and some other states are doing it with a lot more finesse than Scott Walker and Chris Christie.
I feel like that tunnel would have more of a chance if it was called the transvaginal tunnel. Don't you think? Just in terms of branding. Right. But then they'd have to inspect it constantly. Yes, right there.
Who do you think is Mitt going to have to name somebody duller and stiffer than he is as a vice president?
Oh, that's a good question. Who will Mitt Romney name, to be vice president?
It's an interesting thing that you say stiffer than he is
We're
because
back on Bob Dole again.
no, we're back on Dick Cheney because my theory about why Dick Cheney was chosen as the vice presidential partner with George W. Bush was not simply that he was the head of the committee that was looking for vice presidents.
That helped, though.
But
That
he
helped, I
he
think.
was the only living politician who had a less impressive record at Yale than George Bush did, because he flunked out, and at least George graduated. So I think there's something to that you don't want to be overshadowed.
But to be
right?
less charismatic than Mitt Romney, you would have to choose a clip art
Well, no,
character. You'd have to literally go to Google Images and do clip art accountant, and then just have a big cutout with him.
he's gonna either pick, and we're always wrong about this, so caveat. I think he's either going to pick Rob Portman, who almost meets that standard, or Flat Top from Pennsylvania, Tom Ridge, the former governor, who is.
Oh, great, he'll bring back the
Pro-choice.
terror alert system that was so great.
But he's pro-choice, which they have to close. I think the gender gap is a little bigger than the recent poll.
Oh, yeah?
And for Romney
hope
to
so.
win, he has to close
They
the gender
would
gap.
they allow a pro-choice person on the ticket?
Well, there would be a lot of grumbling about it at the Republican convention, but it would play well with independents. So it's
So
possible that
so
they
no
would be-
Marco Rubio, he's not in?
He's still no. He could still be Marco
But
Rubio.
wasn't supposedly
That would be the
legal-
dual Mormon ticket.
He
since was a Mormon
offered
for
him,
a while.
Romney offered him a job working at his house, but that didn't
What do you mean
come
he's a
through.
Mormon?
But then it
Marco
turns out he
Rubio
had
as a
his
young
papers.
man was a Mormon, and he went,
Did you know that?
Yeah, when he was 8 or 9 years old.
he was a little older than that. They made a
Yeah,
pilgrimage. to
Joy
see the
was Jewish
Osmonds.
when she was 8 or 9.
Exactly.
They went.
Rubio's a Mormon?
Briefly.
Basically, what happened with
Who
Rubio.
among us has not had a flirtation with Mormonism?
Well, that's pretty much what it was, because what they had moved to Utah, and they went. He and his mother and his siblings, they made pilgrimages to see the Osmonds. So it was Osmond Mormonism. His father liked to keep drinking and sinning, so he never made the switch.
So
And
he
when they
was a
went
little
back
bit
to-
rock and roll. in
A
other
little
words.
bit. Then when they went back to Florida, then they went back to the Catholic side. But they
That's
had
good.
this flirtation.
He's got it all covered.
He does.
That's good. Okay, who's next? Yes.
Voter suppression has been one of the sort of most underplayed stories. What do you think? How do you think that's going to play into the election?
Voters voting depression.
No, suppression.
Suppression. Well, I was going to say because we are depressed.
Well, I read somewhere
Suppression,
that,
suppressing the vote has been an undercovered story. Who would you say, like on MSNBC in particular, they haven't covered it? Don't you?
I read somewhere that George Soros is giving, maybe I'm wrong, $100 million to the Obama campaign, and he's using it mostly for voter suppression and grassroots.
He's not giving it to the campaign.
Well, whatever he's giving it
He's
to.
going to do
Super
it.
PAC.
The Obama
The super
campaign's a
PAC.
little bit unhappy about it because they're not going to have any control over it, and he's going to do he's going to do grassroots efforts
Yeah.
in many states. They would like him to concentrate it in battleground states, but he's trying to do the kind of democracy building that he's done overseas.
Well, that won't help Obama. He needs to win in those few
yeah,
states.
so there's some tension there.
I sort of agree with this voter suppression thing. I think voters are the problem in our system right now. Because look at it, this campaign, we went through like months and months of debates and all this shit, and we
Yeah.
just picked the richest asshole. So
Yeah.
clearly, we should just have all these guys. It should be like applying to a co-op board.
Yeah.
They should just show their financials, and the guy who has the most money gets in.
Well-
and get rid of all the
out the
voters. The
middleman.
voters
Well,
are a
like-
pain.
Yeah.
Do you
Right.
remember
Do you
Mo
agree? I
Udall?
assume you agree with me.
Well,
Mo Udall, who was one.
Laws in all the states that are trying to
Oh, the voter registration laws.
Yeah,
That's
You
what
seem,
she
to,
meant.
you seem to be looking for actual information, so Jonathan.
She's addressing the question to Jonathan,
Yeah.
who
I'm
actually
sorry,
has
I
information.
misunderstood. I thought that I was supposed to jump in with something.
Well, give us the Mo Udall quote
Okay, but
first.
first we got to tell
was one of the
Udall's
few
story
funny
on your
politicians.
point. He was a wonderfully funny politician who, on election night one night when he lost, he ran in 1976 for president and kept finishing second. And so one night he came out to the crowd to give his concession speech, and he said, "The people have spoken, the bastards." But just in answer to
Yeah.
your question, I think you're right. It is undercovered. We do try to cover it a fair amount on MSNBC. But what's happening is because of the disastrous 2010 midterms, Republicans got control of many state legislatures, and they rammed through all kinds of legislation to suppress the vote because they know that the fewer people who vote, especially students and elderly and African Americans, the better chance they have to win. So they've done a series of things. So, for instance, there used to be permissible to have registration tables, near African American churches. You can't do that anymore in some states. They've said that a student ID doesn't count anymore for registering to vote on campus. You have to have a driver's license. A lot of students don't have driver's licenses, or in that state, maybe their license is in the state where their parents live. All sorts of other things to prevent people
Texas
from voting.
was doing a big, and this is actually true that in Texas, one thing you can use to vote is a gun license. If you have a gun license,
Right, but not a
that gets you the
student,
vote.
not a student ID.
Or just
gun
a gun.
license is okay.
A gun will also.
Right.
Is it true that
So-
at the Republican convention this year, you're allowed to take a gun that's hidden, but you can't take a water gun? I read that.
That
Because
sounds
they're
like-
afraid they're going to melt. I mean,
because
I
they're
don't-
going to squirt.
You're not, but you can carry
Because
a
they're
gun.
going to squirt.
Carry a
They're
concealed
going
weapon,
to
but
squirt
not a
ramen on the platform. They're
No,
worried
it's-
about people slipping in with. That would make sense. That would be sort of in tune with the basic logic
Yeah,
of the year.
I read
Yeah.
that.
All right, we will take one last question. Just my only. Excuse me?
The balcony.
The balcony. Okay. I'm just. Did you guys pay to get in as well? Okay. That's what I checked. Okay. There's a woman standing in the balcony. She's. The only way I can describe her affect right now is, did any of you see Les Miserables? She's sort of like, the balcony, le balcon. And she's fucking scaring the shit out of me right now. But yes, you the balcony, yes, occupy the balcony, yes. Fine, keeping it real at the 92nd Street Y, that's what this is all about. But you know what? I ask only one thing of your question, Madame Le Balcon, which is, just please make your question be one that sort of sums up the whole evening in a way that's transcendent, but also makes all of us leave feeling that our lives have in some way been fundamentally changed. Okay, so what is your question, Madame?
It's better be good.
Is, and we haven't touched on it yet here, how can this crowd, that is admittedly very liberal and very supportive of Obama, look at themselves in the mirror given how he supports, or does not support Israel the way he
The Jews have rebelled.
You know what? You know what? That was actually not the note I wanted to end on. Good night, everybody.